So welcome everyone. My name is Zach Davey. I'm one of the admissions officers at RISD, and I'll be giving today's presentation, just general information about the portfolio, specifically a checklist and final touch for regular decision applicants. Regular decision deadlines are around the corner, so this is most helpful for the first year regular decision applicants in the crowd, talking about what can be done between now and the deadline, what to think about with your checklist, and what kinds of final touches to put on your portfolio and the rest of your application. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Mary, who's joining me today.
Thanks, Zach. So my name is Maren Brennan. I work with Zach in admissions, and I'm here acting as chat manager today. So I'm going to be behind the scenes while Zach gives his presentation. Any questions you have, please go ahead and answer them in the Q&A chat box, which is a few icons to the right of the chat box where you're telling us where you're tuning in from. You might also find it under the more icon with the three dots. If you enter your questions in the Q&A chat box, it allows us to keep track of them, make sure they don't get buried. We're also going to be putting some helpful links in the main chat box. So with all that, I'll pass it over to Zach, but I will reappear and we're going to, by the way, open it up to a Q&A discussion after the presentation. So I also encourage you to a lot of your questions might very well be answered during this great presentation today too. All right. Take it away, Zach.
Cool. Thank you, Maren. I'll also turn off my video for the presentation and I'll turn it back on for the Q&A. But yeah, thank you all so much again for joining. So this webinar will focus on first year regular decision applicants. We'll talk about how to submit your RISD application materials, final touches on application and visual requirements. When will decisions be released? And then we'll end with Q&A. If there's any transfers here, please let us know. We're going to have a transfer application prep later. I was going to say this month, but I don't actually know. In the near future, we'll have another application prep for transfer students. So yeah,
February.
thank you, Mayor, in February. Thank you, thank you.
Sorry,
And you can,
I made it creepy by sing-songing it, but anyway, okay, I'm disappearing again.
thank you, Mary. But yeah, you can find all of these upcoming webinars on risd.edu/live. So if you want to sign up for any future ones, see any recordings, it's all listed there and on our YouTube page. Um, Again, please keep in mind that both application prep 2 and 7 are about the transfer application. These online info sessions are available to anyone. So no matter where you are in your educational journey, you're more than welcome to attend. So here are our application deadlines for first year regular decision applicants. Financial aid deadlines follow soon after. If any changes to deadlines or requirements happen, our most current dates will always be posted on risd.edu. We will also send out a notification. If any changes to requirements or deadlines happens late in the application cycle, RISD will not penalize a student or their family, but we don't foresee this happening. So no need to stress at this moment. So hopefully you're already familiar with RISD's application requirements. However, I'll go over this just to make sure you know everything that needs to be submitted. Quick tip, please do not wait until the last minute to submit your Common App or any of your application materials. So at RISD.edu, you can see all of our application requirements. If you haven't already, first year applicants, you will begin your application to RISD through the Common Application. Transfer applicants will use the RISD application portal. Have your school send your official transcripts to our admissions office. Keep that in mind. They can do so either electronically through the Common App, by parchment, email, mail. For those that are homeschooled, it is helpful for your reviewer to have detailed information about your secondary school coursework. This can take the form of a transcript from online programs or community college classes, or a document written by you and your parents or teachers detailing your program of study. Please upload your transcripts or written documents to the Common App or have your education provider email them to us at admissions@risd.edu. We'll go over more in depth on those other elements soon. And RISD requires that you complete the Common App essay. Remember, this gets sent to all the colleges that you'll apply for via the Common App. So try not to specify any information in the essay to one specific school. Again, every school you apply to via the Common App will receive this. And one of the most important parts of your Common Application is your essay. So to find the essay, it's going to be under the Common App tab, again, because the Common App essay goes to all the schools you're applying to via the Common App. You can see that RISD requires this, and there are the different essay topics options listed down below. I recommend writing your essay in another platform and then copying and pasting it into the Common App, Microsoft Word, Apple Pages, Google Doc. This will help you to spell check and use other helpful features that the Common App won't have. I recommend writing multiple drafts to take your time with this. And you can use the spun to enlarge the window. It's a little easier to work that way. So when you are writing your essay or pasting it into the Common App, please be mindful of formatting. Please arrange your essay in a way that is as easy to read as possible. Please divide your essay into shorter paragraphs. Do not present one long block of text, and do not make your entire essay bold. I recommend watching the third application prep webinar, which focuses on the Common App essay and offers some tips. You can find it on the RISD YouTube channel under the admissions playlist. Any letter of recommendation can come from anyone you feel can speak to artistic and academic strengths. The Common App is still going to ask you for a counselor recommendation at the invite recommenders section, but you can put any recommenders information there. It doesn't need to be a counselor for RISD specifically. Even if your recommenders will be sending their letters on their own and not through the Common App, please still include one email address for each recommender to complete the section. Fortunately, our system allows you to submit materials slightly after the deadline. So if you're waiting on a final recommendation, that's okay. We understand that will happen and may be out of your control. So we try to be as lenient as possible with that, but do try to get it in as soon as possible. The deadline for the portfolio and the rest of the Common App is a little bit stricter in comparison. So after you fill out all of the biographical information, your activities, your personal essay in the Common App, if there's any other information you want your reviewer to know, you can put it underneath the additional information section. You can find it under the writing tab. Here you can tell us if any events or situations have affected you or your academics. And just before you submit your Common application, there will be a section where you can request an application fee waiver. Please don't let the admission application fee prevent you from applying. If the $60 fee presents a hardship for you or your family, we'll waive it for you. You can request a waiver two ways, the first of which is through the Common App. So under the Profile tab, you'll see the Common App fee waiver section. You will check yes, and then select the answer which best fits your family circumstances. Then you'll be able to submit your Common App without entering any credit card information. If your situation does not match any of the waiver criteria on the Common App fee waiver section, please email us at admissions@risd.edu and we'll manually waive the fee for you. Of course, fee waivers are available to transfer applicants as well. Again, please email us. So all right, let's talk more about the most important part of your application, your portfolio. The general definition of a portfolio is a collection of examples that showcases your thinking and making in your creative practice. The portfolio for your RISD application is meant to be a limited selection of just your strongest visual work. As I mentioned before, you will use the online portfolio platform SlideRoom. You can start your SlideRoom portfolio through the Common App. So once you're logged in and you've added RISD to your schools, you'll need to fill out student status, start term, and admission plan. After, you will need to agree to submit your portfolio using SlideRoom. And once you do so, the portfolio tab will appear on the left-hand side of the page. Click this portfolio tab, then click the Rhode Island School Design Portfolio Site button to navigate to SlideRoom. I'll circle back to more tips on using SlideRoom in a moment. And you'll click on the Add Media button, the Add Media button to begin adding your work. Here's where you'll decide what pieces you want to include and what you want to leave out. So what does RISD look for in a portfolio? Well, you must include at least 12 pieces and you'll have up to 20 slots that you can fill. In general, RISD looks for art that shows us a unique point of view, show us what inspires you. We also like to see developed concepts and evocative ideas, not just technical exercises. So consider how you can use your technical skill like composition, mark making, lighting, space, texture, color, etc. to convey an idea, environment, story, mood, etc. And with design-based work, your proposal or piece needs to be functional. What problem is your piece trying to solve and does it? The limited space of the application portfolio requires careful selection of which pieces to include and deciding which pieces to exclude. This can include process and preliminary pieces. This can include sketchbook pages, but the majority of your portfolio should feature finished pieces. Do I need to submit a major specific portfolio? No. So you do not apply directly to your desired major. All first year students begin in experimental and foundation studies, EFS. So keep in mind RISD's drawing, design, and spatial dynamics classes. You don't have to have examples of each. Just make sure we get a good idea of your foundational understanding. Also, it's a good idea to have a variety of work. We like to see that you're willing to work across a multitude of ideas, approaches, processes, mediums, etc. So one question that we hear all the time in missions is which is more important than technical skill or creativity? So I want to start with these two ideas. So first, when we say technical skill, what do we mean? When we say technical skill, we're referring to how you purposefully use your materials to achieve a finished piece or endeavor. Here are some key terms to consider when you think about technical skill. Composition, mark making, texture, movement, color, space, point of view, and light. Other key terms to consider are mood, idea or concept, narrative, goal. In general, we challenge you to use your technical skill to go further than just an exercise about technique. We have a portfolio tip webinar recordings available on our YouTube page. Check them out for more tips on what RISD looks for. Again, this is more of a final touches playlist rather than going into everything we look for and think about with the portfolio. So editing down is important. We prefer to see quality over quantity. I also want to touch on what RISD generally discourages. We want to see your original ideas and unique points of view, so please do not include master copies or fan art. For folks interested in architecture and interior architecture, please do not include traditional floor plans. We are still looking for your creativity and unique points of view, even in your design and architecture work. If you're not familiar, master copies are an exact copy of a famous art piece made by someone else. While it can be a good idea to do master copies, create master copies to strengthen your technical skills, please do not include them in your portfolio. We specifically discourage the established styles of cartooning like anime because it's difficult to bring your own voice to such an established, easily recognizable style. It's great to be inspired by anime, but maybe draw inspiration from the compositions or sense of drama rather than just stylization. And character design and concept art are great to include in your portfolio, but please be sure that your designs are your own creations, not someone else's. Again, we want to see your unique character designs. Also consider how you can develop your character designs into finished illustrations. Consider narrative, the story that your piece tells. This can be an illustration of a linear series of events, a storyboard, or a suggestion of a story. So I know I mentioned not to do master copies, but it can be helpful to use an existing piece of art you admire as a jumping off point, but make sure you change it enough to make it your own. Micheline Thomas here presents three women in an ornate setting, composed in a direct homage to Manet's piece from 1863. This piece addresses questions of artifice, femininity, strength, notions of beauty, and glamour. And a strong drawing can look like so many different things. This is something that you can do now before the deadline to beef up your portfolio. Your direct observation work can be loose and quick. Sometimes the best artwork doesn't take very long to complete. Moving quickly with limited time can lead to very lively pieces. Your direct work can be abstract and experimental even. And direct observation isn't limited to 2D. You can use various materials to sculpt from life. And nature never fails as an excellent source of inspiration. You can take elements from what you're drawing from and turn it into a pattern, for example, like we see here. Another great way to work from direct observation is to construct your own 3D pieces and work from that as the resource. Consider atmosphere in your drawings. In general, draw the things around you. Consider how you can bring your own perspective to these drawings and express your relationship with these things. Again, it's always important to go further than just a technical exercise, but just drawing what's around you can be a really great starting point. And when I say starting point, again, this is the final touches presentation. I mean, more great starting point for adding a couple more drawings into your portfolio, beefing it up. Again, drawings can be quick and loose, and this is something that can help a lot of our applicants in their final portfolio. So, do I need to have one theme in my portfolio? No. We encourage you to show all the different materials, ideas, and disciplines you work in. Can I use assignments from school? Yes, but please be sure to put your own twist and experiment with any class assignment. In general, we prefer to see self-guided work because we typically see more of your own interest and personality come through in those. If you're in the IB curriculum or any curriculum for that matter, you will need to reformat your portfolio. We highly discourage this type of slide that we see here, which is again common in the IB curriculum. Please do not include text descriptions in the slide with the image of your art. There is a designated space in slide room where you can provide information for each piece. You can write about it, the process and the description, but the work should really stand on its own visually without a long explanation. The most important thing for us to know is size and medium. That is required. Description is not. Again, we highly discourage heavily formatted portfolios. The slide should just be for images themselves. And ideally, please only feature one artwork per slide. If you have a three-dimensional piece, please include no more than 3 views per side. You can choose a process. It is helpful to see some process and research for a lot of pieces. However, it is also important to know when to edit. Your portfolio should mostly finish feature work that can stand on its own. Again, the finished pieces should be emphasized. I recommend choosing at most 2 to 3 pieces where you want to show the process and additional research, perhaps. And do not group images together in one slide by category. For example, don't include all of your figure drawings in one side room entry. Again, one work per slide. This leads to how to document your work. You want to document your work in a way that presents it as clearly as possible. Different pieces will need different documentation techniques. Whether you document your work through photo, video, or digital file, please prioritize directness and clarity. A phone camera can yield good results. It is not necessary to use professional photography equipment. When photographing your work, consider the lighting condition, perspective, the background, and the file format. Try photographing 2D work outside in the shade for indirect lighting. Use a direct light source for 3D pieces to show volume. And present your portfolio in as clear and impactful of a way as possible. Overly complicated presentations or blurry images can really distract and divert attention away from your work. So again, a great example of what to do on the left and what not to do on the right. This is what it'll look like in Slideroom to you. And this is what it looks like to us when we go to review it. It might be hard to see on your screen, but we will see title, medium, and description next to each image. And remember, focus on the artwork itself. No borders around your artwork, no excessive information. Double check the image size after you upload them. Images are in the correct orientation, or are your images in the correct orientation, or are they upside down, sideways? I know that seems like a small thing, but you would be surprised how many portfolios we receive are uploaded sideways, and we have to review them that way. So yes, please make sure your images are the correct size and orientation. Can also include themes or comics. This is a little different because the formatting is very intentional to the final visual elements of the artwork. You can absolutely include digital artwork in your portfolio, as long as your entire portfolio isn't digital. The majority of your artwork should be done with hands-on physical mediums. This enables us to get a better sense of your foundational understanding. But again, a few digital pieces here and there is fine and great to include, as long as they're of a similar quality as the rest of the portfolio. So what types of files can I upload? Here are some preferred file types. We recommend using JPEG or PNG files for still images. If you have a still image with a lot of smaller details, you may use a single page PDF. We can only zoom in on single page PDFs, but please do not submit multi-page PDFs. They load really slowly on our ends and are therefore discouraged. You can use GIF, MP4, GIF or GIF. I always forget the correct pronunciation, but you can include those, MP4, MOV files for time-based pieces. In general, I recommend MP4 and MOV files. That way we can pause, we can scroll through sometimes GIFs that can be lost. You can also upload your work to Slideroom via YouTube and include the link again directly in Slideroom. But be careful with that. I'll talk about that a little bit more in moments. So now onto the file types we discourage. Please do not use Google Drive files, zipped files, Microsoft Word documents, or Apple Pages documents. In general, please don't send us any files we would need to Also, please do not upload multi-page PDFs. They take a really long time to load in Lightroom and usually leads to the applicant including too much information. This again takes away from the impact and effectiveness of your submission. If you make artwork through digital applications, especially when working in layers or vectors, please export the final piece to one of the recommended file formats. Again, JPEG, PNG, MP4, MOV, etc. And video links. Please be sure to set video links to enlisted or public and not private. There's no set time limit, but we recommend 3 minutes or less to ensure we watch from beginning to end. And some of your best artwork might live in your sketchbook. It's also a great place to collect your ideas and showing your sketchbook might be a good way to display your critical thinking skills. It can absolutely include works in progress or sketches, but the majority of your artwork should be finished. These video slideshows are also a great way of documenting multiple images for a single submission. So please choose pieces that best represent you as an artist and as an individual. They should be the pieces that are the most unique to you. We really want to see a personality. In addition to considering what pieces to include in your portfolio, you'll also need to consider the order in which you showcase your work in Sliderum. Pretend that you are curating a show. How do you want your work to flow? Start strong and end strong is always my recommendation. But here are some other basic ways you can organize chronologically, by discipline, thematically, or by project, color and material, narrative. I encourage students not to overthink the order in which you submit your work because I don't know, in my perspective as a reviewer, it's never made an impact on the final decision. At the end of the day, the work you submit is the work you submit. But you'll have to order it some way. So I just recommend doing what looks best for your projects or your portfolio as a whole. Again, certain pieces or series may not be straightforward to document. Please use your best judgment to present your work in a clear, effective way. Do what works best for your portfolio. And a quick note about the Brown RISD dual degree program. For our admitted or deferred early decision applicants, you'll still need to apply to Brown regular decision or in order to be considered for this program. If you are not admitted to RISD, then unfortunately that will be the end of your candidacy for the dual degree. You will need to be both submitted to both schools, but also submitted to the dual degree program individually. So a final application checklist. You have your Common App, the essay, transcripts, letter of recommendations, portfolio, English proficiency tests if English isn't your first language. For Brown RISD dual degree applicants, the Brown RISD dual degree essay, and standardized test scores if you decide to submit them. Again, that part is completely optional. So lastly, it's a good idea to get multiple perspectives and different feedback. The more eyes on your essay, the better. It's always great to have someone, a peer, a mentor, a parent, a teacher, look over your essay, make sure, grammar's correct, that spelling's correct, all of that fun stuff. So next comes reviewing. Your RISD portal will become accessible the day after you submit your common application. If after 3 days you don't get the email to set up your portal and you've already checked your spam and promotional folders, then just give us a call or send us an email. We can help guide you through it. I encourage you to submit your Common App ASAP. That way we can get your file started on our ends and you can get access to the portal sooner rather than later. Common App and Slideroom are submitted separately and do not need to be sent in at the same time as long as we receive both by the deadline. The portal will be used for checking application materials and it's ultimately where your decisions will be posted. Our system updates periodically and some processes get updated every 24 hours. So if you submitted a portfolio through Slideroom and it isn't showing as received immediately afterwards, please don't panic. This is normal. We'll run updates between Slideroom and our own database 4 times per day. So it might take a little bit to upload, to show as uploaded on the portal rather. And missing material emails and texts are automated and up to date when they are sent, but can't account for this delay. So we apologize if you get a missing materials email immediately after that. But this is what your portal will look like after you've successfully submitted all of your materials. Decisions will be released roughly mid-March. That may change, but that is the date we are working towards. And good luck, everyone. I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave some insight into what we recommend in these final weeks before the portfolio, the application, what to look over, and make sure you're filling out your checklist of materials. And I'm happy to switch over to Q&A, answer some questions.
That was excellent, Zach. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really wonderful. So we have a lot of great questions. I saw a few questions about the description in Slider. If you could just reiterate where that description goes and any tips you have for writing a description about your work.
Sure, let me find that really quick. Um, So this is what it'll look like when you go to write your description and upload it. There will be, it's called the additional details section in Cyber. So that's where you can include your description. We recommend shorter. Again, there is a character limit here. That's intentional because we want to spend the time, the limited amount of time we have looking at your portfolio, focused on the work itself. So my recommendation when it comes to descriptions is, again, the completely optional. I think it's best when it's just used to give us some additional context about your work. Maybe there's a specific reference in your drawing or painting or sculpture that you're not sure the admissions committee will be familiar with. That's a great time to mention that reference, to talk about it a little bit more. I what I would avoid is just describing what we see visually. Keep in mind, everyone on our admissions committee, we're all artists. Um, we can consider, what we're seeing just by seeing it and taking a look at it with our eyes. We don't, a good example of what not to do. I once saw a painting of a sailboat and the description was this piece explores nautical themes. So I was like, well, yes, I can figure that out just from seeing the painting. So that might be not be a description that's necessary. But if you are referencing maybe a specific cultural holiday or item from your life and you want us to know about that, maybe use a specific drawing tool or a drawing tool that you create. That's the kind of additional context that can be really helpful for us.
Excellent. Um, so to continue on about the portfolio, would you mind actually, while you have the presentation up, would you mind kind of going more into reiterating um, the importance of, including not including too many pieces per slide? We've gotten some questions too. If you could also speak to like, is it okay to utilize more than one slide to showcase one project?
Yeah, to answer that last question first, that's totally fine as long as you have at least 12 finished pieces and no more than 20. As long as you're in that range, that's totally okay. We're not going to be super strict about that, but having at least 12 pieces ensures that we're confident with how much work you're making. And then having less than 20 ensures that we see you're cutting down your portfolio to just the strongest pieces. If we see 50 pieces in 20 slides, that's not going to be helpful. That's just going to show us that you don't know how to curate and cut down the portfolio. So again, 12 to 20 pieces. If one project is spread across 2 or 3 slides, it's not the end of the world. As long as that works for your application, that's totally fine. Again, we don't want to see heavily formatted portfolios like this. So if you do want to submit multiple images, I would say no more than 3. But then I remember the sketchbook later on. Here we go. These sketchbook pages, I think, are a great way to upload multiple images to a single slide because it's uploaded as a video slideshow, just a couple seconds on each image. For us as a reviewer, we can pause it, we can scrub around the video to a specific frame we want to focus on. It's really about us seeing the work as large as it possibly can be. When you submit these very heavily formatted portfolios, like we saw earlier, um, for example, this one here, the images get very small. They get very blurry. They get very hard to see. And everything else just becomes more distracting. So that's my recommendation there.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, keep in mind everyone, if you decide to include process work, we don't need to see process for every finished piece. And yeah, Zach has shown you different ways in which to showcase process. It could be on the same slide as long as you're not over cluttering. It could be a, video of your sketchbook, as you said, or a separate slide. Just being mindful of how many different projects you want to show. I don't know why I just repeated everything you just said.
Oh, it's perfect.
Um,
It's
I
worth
was,
repeating.
I was going to ask you, like, while you have your presentation up, would you mind actually sharing your screen again to the slide about
Yeah.
acceptable files being shown?
Yes,
Thank you so much. Yeah,
definitely.
if everyone wants to take a screenshot of this, this is would be helpful. I got it right.
Yeah, feel free to take a screenshot. Cool.
Yeah.
Any
And
other
I know on
questions?
Sideroom, there's information about that as well. Also on our website, I put a link in the chat about many links, but the one with our application requirements, and we can re-put that in there. The list of requirements, if you click the arrow for portfolio, it gives you more, information than just, more information than just saying the portfolio is required. So, um, kind of speaking of, multiple images, can you speak a little bit more to if somebody has a comic book, graphic novel, that they want to include, a website that they want to show, how would you recommend that?
Yeah, like if it's a full comic book, I would keep in mind if it's many, many pages, we're not going to be able to read it from beginning to end. We're just not going to have the time to be able to do that. So I would recommend highlighting a couple of pages and maybe using the video format that I showed earlier for sketchbooks. And just highlighting the best pages from the graphic novel, some of the strongest illustrations in particular that'll mean the most to us. And then you could give us a little bit more context about the full larger narrative and how long the original graphic novel is in the description of the piece. But again, it should cut down to just the strongest elements. But I think later in this presentation, there was a great slide of, or maybe it was earlier. Here, I'll load it up really quick of someone who submitted a graphic novel page. Let me see, or a comic book page. Here it is. So I think this is very helpful. I know it seems simple, but that's perfect. Again, it should be clear, direct. There's no fancy editing. Any design elements are intentional to the piece itself, not just the fact that it's a portfolio. It's really about the medium of comic book and how you are navigating that, adding your own personality to that. So yeah, this is a great way to document the comic book page. Again, taking a photo of it, if it's a physical drawing or illustration, taking a photo of it outside on a sunny day in the shade behind the building can be really helpful. I know that's a lot of steps, but again, just out behind the building in the shade, sunny day. That way you get a lot of light on it, but it's not harsh and direct. You're not going to see um, uh, lots of light in one area like you can on my forehead right here. That's very harsh direct lighting. Well, that's really helpful for a sculpture because maybe you want to show us that volume. So that's one way I recommend. And then with digital work, it's easy. You just export the file. You don't have to worry about lighting and all of that.
Excellent. Thank you, Zach. That's excellent. And I've also put in the regular chat a link, a direct link to the YouTube recording of curating and presenting your portfolio. That's Application Prep 5. I've also put a link to a recent portfolio tips we did. So we go more in depth there as well. I'm going to ask you one more question for the time being about the portfolio, then we'll move on to other questions about the application. This one I thought was a very good one. Most of so this person's talking about how, just overall work that would is made for makes a really strong portfolio. Um, like, if you could speak to a first year applicant who is, you know, knows that they have to include some traditional work or work done with traditional materials, but the majority of their work focuses on creative UX or UI design, experimental music, branding, and mold/bacterial art.
Awesome. Yes, you can absolutely include bacterial art as long as it's safe for you all. That's awesome. Yeah, no, we love to see unconventional mediums, approaches, processes. That's always really exciting for us. For things like UX and UI, keep in mind we're admitting you to the foundations program. We're not admitting you directly to graphic design or industrial design. We're just looking at your readiness for the first year. So can you submit UI UX, bacterial art? What were some of the other options? Just you can submit anything that's visual in nature or experimental sound can also be included with the portfolio. I recommend a video format for that because of our new sound major. But we like to see variety. We don't, what I'm trying to say is we don't only want to see one medium, one approach, one process. In terms of how to format it, because you're not applying directly to those majors, I actually recommend against very traditional formatting. I know, especially with UX and UI, there's a lot of traditions in how students will format their images and how they show the functionality of their UX and UI work. That's all great, but it can often hinder students who really want to stand out from other students. If you're following an approach that's a little too traditional, then it's really hard for us to see how you're thinking creatively, how you're standing out from other applicants. Again, because you're not being admitted directly into graphic design, it's okay if it gets a little experimental. We want to see your personality come through. We want to see your own perspective, your own insight into UI, UX, or whatever medium you're working in. So what I'm trying to say is you can format it however you want. I would we prefer not to see heavily formatted portfolios. Lots of images on one page. Again, you can use a video slideshow, but have fun with it. Give us some a reason to see why your UX UI work is more exciting than the next applicant's, and that can be through formatting. That could be through the process of material. Can you incorporate mold and bacterial media into your UI UX work? I don't know, whatever it might be. Again, be safe with it. But other than that, we love to see the experimentation. Does that answer your question? Do you think, Marion?
Yeah, I think it
Cool.
was great.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you. Um, Can you go over again how I've seen some questions here just about slide room and just this is the operational aspect of, at what point you get to slide room when doing your common application. There's been some questions, about making sure that they're doing it in the correct order. You absolutely can, by the way, upload work to slide room without like in general, but Isaac's going to revisit the importance of that part in Common App where where that you'll select so that we will then send you an email with the PIN number, and that PIN number, when you use it to set up your slide room, that's going to connect your application, your portfolio to your application.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way of going about it is as we see here. When you fill out your Common App,
Mhm.
you'll get to the section for RISD specifically, and you'll see a section where you mark that you agree to submit your portfolio using SlideRoom. You hit continue, and then this will link you to SlideRoom. That is very helpful to get a very direct link already. And then once you submit your Common App, it's okay to submit your slide room portfolio at a later date. As long as you use that link or use the code that Marion mentioned, it'll link to us on our ends. We'll see them together. If you have any issues in this process, just send us an email. We're happy to work with you, help guide you through that process. But it's typically pretty straightforward. You click on the portfolio site link, you see slide room, then you can upload them either at the same time or at separate times. Just make sure you still fill out all of the Common App that you go and submit your essay, your information about your recommenders, biographical information, all of that stuff we'll need to see too. But yeah, this is what it'll look like on your end.
Um, and Also, I just want to clarify, I did see a question early on. If anybody here, and well, I if you did apply early decision and you were deferred to a regular decision, there's no need to do anything else. So there was a question that I wanted to make sure in case anyone else had that question. Um, you're not reapplying. You don't need to submit a regular decision application. You're welcome to send us any questions, first of all, or anything like that to admissions at risd.edu. And that goes for everyone, of course, but you do not need to reapply if you are, for that. I also really quickly wanted to address, there were some questions, or Zach, if you wouldn't mind addressing. There were a couple questions that popped in, and we won't spend too much time on it because we have extensive webinars about it, but about dual degree. I'll put the dual degree website in the main chat. But would you mind speaking to, there's been a couple questions about if you're applying to dual degree, is there anything different in terms of our application? I will say with Brown's application, you'll need to go to Brown to learn specifics about theirs. And the portfolio portion of their application is not required. I will go so far also to say that, well, you know what? I'm going to let you answer, Zach, so that I could drop those links because I can't do two things at once, apparently.
Thank you, Maren. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, the portfolio will be required for RISD, obviously, as we've been discussing, and for the dual degree. So to apply to the dual degree, you'll need to apply to Brown and RISD individually as though you're just applying to these schools individually. In both Common Apps, you'll see the question, would you also like to apply for the Brown RISD dual degree program? Something along those lines. You hit yes, and then there will be one additional essay prompt. It's the same essay that gets sent to both schools, and that's the only additional requirement. It's just the one Brown RISD dual degree essay that you'll submit in both Common Apps, and then everything else is specific to each individual school and to the Common App as a whole. So yeah, when you submit the dual degree essay, the rest of your application, the portfolio, you'll get three decision letters. You'll get one from Brown, one from RISD, and one from the dual degree program. So if you applied to, say, Brown early decision and you weren't admitted, you unfortunately won't be able to apply for the dual degree program. But if you were admitted to Brown early decision, you want to apply for the dual degree program, you would still need to apply to RISD and send your essay to both schools in order to be considered. So yeah, this yeah, the links Maren submit in the chat will give you a whole outline on paper. But if anyone needs more clarifications, just let us know.
I also just put in the chat RISD's Student Financial Services link. Please go there for any information and questions you have about financial aid. You can reach out to them directly. They're fantastic and they can answer those questions. Um,
I'll also add, if you do get into the dual degree
Thank
program,
you.
all tuition and financial aid is through Brown too. You only
Yes.
pay Brown's tuition and receive their financial aid. If you get
Thank
into the dual degree, if you're just going to RISD, then obviously RISD's financial aid and tuition.
Excellent. No, Zach, we are like on the same wavelength because I wanted to add that as well. But I also, on top of that, wanted to, if you're applying to dual degree and you're seeking financial aid, still submit your financial aid forms to RISD, the RISD if required ones, which is going to be the FAFSA, as well as the RISD institutional financial aid form. If you're an international applicant, it's just the RISD institutional financial aid form. You'll find that in your applicant portal. Um, and, everyone, whether you're a domestic applicant or international applicant, will need to address that RISD institutional financial aid form. The first question is, are you seeking financial aid? If it's no, no further questions. But again, make sure to get those in by the financial aid deadline. Zach, would you mind showing the deadlines again,
Yes. Let
for
me
me? Thank
see.
you. But of course, if you end up going into dual degree, it'll be Brown University that takes over the financial aid and it'll be Brown's tuition. Um, and yeah, so that's a deadline of February 2nd for financial aid. And then the 20th is the regular decision deadline. I also want to let everyone know in case there were questions or anyone's wondering. Yeah, as Zach has said already too, January 20th is the deadline for all of the application to RISD, including portfolio. Sometimes we get questions like, is there a separate deadline for portfolio? There is not. Okay. Oh, and I did have a question about a deadline. So that somebody had asked, so I will I will read it. So if they're going to be on Pacific Standard Time when applying, should they follow Eastern Standard Time or submit on in their local time zone? Uh,
I am inclined to say local time zone, but Marin, you might know better than me.
I think, and I know we know this, but I'm also, first of all, go with like, I'm going to start off by saying, don't try your best not to submit right on the exact deadline. So rather than like 11:59 p.m. January 20th, Eastern time, please give yourself cushion room.
Yes.
There isn't an answer to this in terms of like local versus Eastern time. And neither of us, like, we don't want to give you the wrong information, but even still, because it's escaping us right now, but even still, please do not wait to like press submit at that moment because yes, everything is digital, but we all know that technology sometimes, sometimes there are curveballs. So give yourself, a cushion.
Yeah.
With with that being said, we're here to assist you, and our office is here to assist you, with any troubles with your application. Like we can help also on our end in some ways. So just, communicate with us, but please also don't wait until the last minute to submit everything. Please do not do that.
If you really want to know the answer to that question too, just send us an email. We'll get in touch with our colleagues, make sure we get you the correct answer. But I can't emphasize what Marin's recommending enough. If you're applying within the last few hours, there are so many things that can go wrong. Wi-Fi, power, um, anything. It can really be anything. So try to submit it earlier than the day of.
Absolutely. This is a question about the overall application. If a student carried a strong portfolio as well as strong extracurriculars and recommendations, would a lower GPA or lack of AP classes heavily damage the chances of acceptance?
Lack of APs, likely not. I can't think of a scenario where that would have a huge impact. I would say I would not worry about lack of APs. Lower GPA, on the other hand, it depends. It depends on the applicant, the quality of the portfolio, how low the GPA is. If what you consider a lower GPA to be 1C in AP calculus, that's totally okay. It's not the end of the world. But the reason I use calculus as an example is because we actually take a closer look at your scores in your liberal arts courses and your studio arts than we do your math and science courses, because liberal arts and studio arts are what you're going to have to take at RISD. So we want to make sure you're ready for those courses. Um, Another thing that can outweigh a lower GPA is if we see improvement over time. If maybe you had a pretty low GPA early on, but we see some significant improvement, that means a lot to us. So improvement can outweigh a lower GPA. And yeah, it can get to the point where if we see you're failing most of your courses, if no matter how strong the portfolio it is, you likely won't get admitted. So it can impact the final decision. It is very important to the application as a whole. But if we see improvement over time, or if you're only concerned about one or two courses, that's likely not something to be too concerned about. But yeah, just do you have anything to add to that, Mary? Does that give a good overview of GPA?
That's great. Yeah.
Cool.
No, I think that was really, really well said. Thank you. Okay. Lost my train of thought, but just remembered my train of thought. Okay. Do you mind, Zach, if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go for it. I'll stop
Just
sharing mine.
okay. Just because this is a question. Wait, actually, before I oh, okay. I'll do that. And in one moment.
If you need a moment, I can go on to another question in the chat while you load something up. Oh,
Thank
there you
you.
go.
There I am. And accept, well, it's not. All right. We got this. We got this. Don't we? Here it is. There's a question in here, and I'm also now going to promote the latest application prep, the one before this, which is application prep 5. Somebody asked a question about discourage, like cliche photography. This is a list we put in the presentation. This is not a hard and fast rule. This is just an example of what we see all the time. And this is kind of piggybacking on what Zach said about, show us you and try to, push the boundaries and don't. We want to learn about you, and we want you to know, though, that we see a lot of this same kind of stuff. So it's hard to stand out if you're including, for example, photography of subject matter that we see all the time, experiment in not just photography, but any medium. So this was a question that popped up. Please know that this isn't like, again, rules. This is a list that you're not allowed to include. But I also wanted to use this slide to show that, and then also check out our the recording of application prep 5, curating and presenting your portfolio, because it goes more in depth about other things that Zach touched on it today, but other things that we discourage. Um, okay.
A good example too of how like that could be acceptable if you're thinking creatively about it. I know of a sculpture by Corey Archangel where he hacked the Nintendo Entertainment System so that it only showed the clouds in Super Mario Bros. And there was no gameplay, there's nothing but the clouds. And that's just like a very interesting, creative way to depict clouds, to go through and hack this Mario cartridge and think about how you can change the context of it. But if it's just like a general pretty images of clouds, that can be really hard to stand out because of the high volume that we get. So just yeah, an example.
Let's see here in the last bit, just making sure that we have a few questions, but I want to make sure that we're addressing ones that we haven't. Okay, this is back to the portfolio. We've gotten some questions about including videos. I know we touched on it already, but can you kind of give more insight into the length of a video, a process video, if not, just things like that. How,
Yeah, I
if there's a
was
limit, all that.
totally. I was just not uploading. I was loading up this slide from the presentation. But yeah, with when it comes to videos, we recommend 3 minutes or less. That's not a strict requirement, but that'll ensure that we watch the video from beginning to end. You can include as many videos as you want in your portfolio. There's no limit on that. But we recommend generally 3 minutes or less to ensure we watch from beginning to end. If the video is 15 minutes long, we're likely going to start skipping around the video for the sake of time. So if you're okay with that, if it's a video where contextually that might be fine, then that's totally fine to include a longer video. But to ensure we watch from beginning to end, 3 minutes or less. You can submit MP4 and MOV files. That would be my recommendation for most applicants because that's the simplest and ensures we receive it right in Slideroom. You can submit via YouTube or Vimeo links through Slideroom. Just again, be sure that they're set to unlisted or public. We have received links that are set to private and we just can't open them, unfortunately. So please make sure they're set to public or unlisted.
We have a question that is, do you recommend putting renders as a piece?
Yes, if it's exciting and creative. So what I mean by that, if it's a render right in the middle of the frame of an object that already exists and it's purely about the technique of the render, I wouldn't recommend that because that's so heavily focused on just technique, your ability to use Cinema 4D or Rhino, whatever rendering software you're using, or not. We want to see how you go beyond just technique. So if you are making a render and the render itself is quite exciting, it gives us some additional perspective into your process, your thinking through the process of making. Yeah, that's totally fine. As a medium, it's totally acceptable. There's just that asterisk I want to mention about, still think creatively, still experiment with the process, even if you're using a tool like 3D rendering.
We got an interesting question um, about submitting a video of themselves playing an instrument if they play professionally, for example.
Uh, Generally, we wouldn't recommend that. We advise against musical recitals, dance performances, theater pieces. We want to see your visual art and design work. If it's because of our new sound major, if it's a little bit more experimental, more focused on sound design, if it's accompanied by visuals that you would have designed, then that can be great to include. But if it's purely about the technique of you performing with this instrument, we are not a music school, so we would prefer not to see that in a portfolio. So generally, I would advise against it.
Excellent. Um, in the last couple minutes, I just want to remind everyone to visit our website and our RISD YouTube channel to see recordings. We've gotten some questions about, just recordings, about the slide room upload, things like that. Yes, that is highlighted and a part of the application prep 5 um, webinar, for example. So please check out that recording. And again, this is being recorded, and this application prep, it will be joining those on our on YouTube as well.
I'll
Um,
say too, slide room is
yes,
pretty straightforward. Once you make the account, you're in it. It'll tell you this is where you drag and drop the image. This is where you type in title, medium, and description. So once you're in it, hopefully that eases some stress.
absolutely. Okay. So we've pretty much addressed all the questions that are here. If anyone has any, I mean, Zach, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Zach, to kind of just bestow any pearls of wisdom you have. But I do also want to remind everyone, if you have any further questions, please feel free to email us at admissions@risd.edu. And Zach, yeah, I'll pass it back to you to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, totally. I guess my last piece of advice is don't stress too much about making this huge, enormous piece to include in the portfolio. We talked about like drawing from observation because that can often be like a fast, fun thing to beef up the portfolio a little bit. But at this point, keep in mind the curation is going to have a bigger impact. How you cut down the portfolio, choosing which pieces to include and exclude. That's going to start to have the bigger impact at this point in the process. So have fun with it. I'm not just saying that to end on a bright note. If you're having fun with your portfolio submissions, we tend to see more of your personality, your creativity via that. So that's always exciting for us to see. So yeah, have fun with the process. Even have fun with the essay. You will have to write a lot in art school. You have to write about art and design and other aspects of your life. So it's a great time to think about it as a creative endeavor and have fun with it. Again, there's all these webinars online that Marin's discussed and we put into the chat where you can watch something more specific about the essay or wider scale tips about the portfolio, all that fun stuff. Yeah, best of luck, everyone. It's almost there. It's almost over. Once the application is submitted, hopefully that'll be some relief. And yeah, best of luck, everyone. Do you have any last words, Marin? Or you look like you had something to say.
I always do, don't I? I just want to thank it. Thank you, Zach. Thank everyone. And just as a reminder, if anybody here who was specifically interested in transferring, just as a reminder, there is an application prep checklist for you specifically. That is February. And that information can be found on our website as well. Thank you all so much. Thank you again, Zach. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.